You're almost there. You need mommy's help.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've made some huge mistakes. Nobody's more devastated than I am.
What is being a good parent, you know? Right now, I feel like I didn't do anything right.
You're this close to being able to have your child returned to you, and that's been put on the back shelf for a while.
Natalia has been in out-of-home care for about half of her life.
The kids do ask for mommy, but they're young. They really don't understand.
The ACS case about the kids, sometimes I feel like just running away.
It's just really hard. I'm just a laborer, and, you know, the foster family are professionals.
She's in the street, they're homeless, but they're denying her going in the shelter. She can't visit her children.
We do what we gotta do.
I never put my kids in harm's way. Right. But it's like, damn, they want too much.
You have to believe that you can parent. Something in you has to change.
There's some concerns about where you are in your recovery.
I had a glass of Chardonnay with a filet mignon dinner.
And that's an excuse?
So stupid. Every time I talk about it, it's like I'm angry at myself.
And that'll change too, trust me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite a powerful and moving trailer.
It was. I can't wait to hear more about it. Now, Stephanie Wong Burrell's moving new film, Tough Love, looks at parents who find themselves struggling to do what is right for themselves and for their children. Tough Love will have its national broadcast premiere on PBS's POV series on July 6th. But if you need to, you should head over to bricartsmedia.org's website, where you can RSVP to see the film before anyone else.
Sounds good. That's right. Next Tuesday night, May 19th, we have our very own sneak peek of Tough Love. It kicks off our very own BRIC FLIX film series here at Brick House. Here to tell us more about the production and the foster care system, our producer, Carrie Weprin. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And Teresa Bachler, did I say that right? Bachelor, thank you. A parent advocate who appears in the film. Thank you so much for joining us. There was a lot of debate about your last name, so I'm glad I got it right. So where did the idea for this film even come from, Carrie?
So Stephanie was screening her last film, which was called Wo Ani Mami, which was about international Chinese adoption. She followed a young girl from China who was adopted by a Long Island Jewish family. And it was in screenings of that film that everybody really urged her to look more at the domestic system. So we started doing a lot of research in the space and talking to as many people as we possibly could. And we spoke with a lot of foster parents and lawyers, and really what we uncovered was that the voice of the birth parent was missing from the discussion. And for us, it was really important to help to tell this story from this community that we thought was underrepresented. So we started going to these support group meetings at CWAP, which is where we met Teresa, and just listening and meeting parents and learning about their stories.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Now, how long have you guys been in production with this piece?
It was a long process. We started shooting, I believe, in 2011.
Wow.
So, you know, it was important for us to really follow these cases until they finished. And unfortunately, the reality is that it tends to take a really long time for these cases to come to close. So we followed our New York mother for about 3 to 4 years, and we also followed a father in Seattle, and his case lasted around 2 years.
Wow, it takes a long time, and I don't know much about the foster care system, right? But if the film is any indication of how difficult it can be to get your kids back, you know, let's speak on that, Teresa. Like, when you work with the birth parents, what is like one of the biggest challenges you see them having to go through?
The biggest challenge is not knowing anything about the system. They come in not educated regarding their legal rights. what is the next step. They don't have no support system. They're afraid, no knowledge. And when they come into CWAP, the Child Welfare Organizing Project, we were able to give them that support that is needed, and the knowledge and the education to get through the system.
Wow. Now, with parents who are facing this process, right, it's a daunting process. How is it that you were able to get parents to agree to have that process put out there on film?
It was really hard. You know, this is one of the most traumatic experiences of these people's lives, and you know, we're asking to film it. So
it's traumatic to watch. I was kind of
no, I mean, for us it was really hard. But so we had to be very careful and very sensitive of that. But the other thing that we found was that so many of these parents felt like they just didn't have a voice, and they were so they wanted to work with us to help share their story, because there are so many people out there facing this same issue, and they feel like they're alone. Wow. So one thing that we did, you know, we did promise was that we wouldn't use anybody's story unless, like, if in the middle of filming they decided they didn't want to be a part of it anymore, that we would back out. Right. And we also didn't begin editing the film until all of the cases were officially closed.
Wow.
So that was really important.
So let's talk about some of the issues, Teresa, that the parents face. Addiction is talked about in the film, poverty, and how do those then, parents dealing with those issues, translate into, okay, now your children are in foster care? How does that happen?
Well, if all it needs is the first call to the State Central Registry. It could be someone call, a family member call, your neighbor call, the school. The number one is the school system, call the child welfare system, call the State Central Registry at that, and that call generates to ACS, the Administration to Children's Services, and then investigation starts. That's all it takes. It's just one phone call for someone to get called, and on any case.
Wow. And how often are parents able to get their children back once their children are put into the foster care system?
Good question.
How often? Well, the children, we have 15 to 18 months. Okay, not often, not all cases, all children are taken. Services is put in place. You have to go, when a call comes in, there's an investigation process that goes in. You have 60 days of investigation. Either you go and you have a child safety conference. There's a conference that it takes place where services is going to be put in place, and sometimes children are not removed. Only the court will make that decision if the children are being removed or not. Or there's a strong allegation towards the mother that the child needs to be removed, but not all cases. In the process, some processes are shorter and some processes are longer, or depends on the recommendation that the parent needs to do. A lot of us need, will have to do either parenting skill class, anger management, drug program. There's services, mental illness, mental services that needs to be put in place. And some of us are there for a short period of time. I was one of the lucky ones that my children was in care for a short period of time. Because I got involved with the child welfare system. I educated myself, and it's all about education and knowledge and knowing your rights and how the system actually works.
That's great. So that's how you got into parent advocacy?
Yes.
Okay.
To help others.
That's great, because she answered a lot of my questions. So I was going to be like, so let me get this straight. You can make a phone call and then take people's kids?
Yeah, our New York story, she was brought into the system based on an anonymous call. So
crazy.
It's something as simple as that. Wow. But what we found, to answer your question before, is there's over 50% of families reunify, but the film also juxtaposes two different systems. So we're in New York, and then we're also in Seattle. And Seattle is a really progressive model, the court there. It's just more about reunifying parents with their children. That's where the focus really is, and helping these parents. And parents that go through this specific model, they're up to 50% more likely to get their kids home. So there are things we can be doing to help these families, but a lot of times you don't see that.
So out of curiosity, so in addition to watching this process unfold on film and having been through this process, Teresa, are there any areas in the New York system in particular that you think should be reformed or looked at with regard to how our foster system works in this city? Teresa?
Yeah. Anything that needs to be reformed?
Yeah.
It's the reunification process. You know, it's a long process. I would say that the court system process, there's no one talking to each other. And the family gets caught up in the middle. So as a family that's been through that, you're angry. You don't want to deal with this process. They're not coming to you and telling you, well, you have to do A, B, and C in a proper way in order to get your children back. And the long process. I would say it's the long process of reunification. Some of these parents children are being removed.
So it's a long process, and then within that process, is there a space made to make sure that the parent-child bond is still there? Do they get to visit? How does that work?
Yes, there's visits. There's visits. Okay. When a child is removed at that moment in time, the child goes into the children's center. A foster care agency, I can't really tell you so much about the project, but the children would have visits. That's visits. Family does have visits. Then from depending on the allegation, you either have supervisor visits or liberty visits. I mean that you could go outside with your family or children.
Go to the park or have an activity together. Okay.
And usually children now they placing children more with a family member, so you get to be with that family member, be around your children.
They still have connections to the family.
Yes, and have the visits. Visits are more open now than they were before.
Years ago.
Things have changed. Yeah. There has been a lot of change, but they're still working on more change. It needs to be.
One of the big things we noticed when making the film was that, especially in New York, the parents just didn't seem to have access to a lot of the supports and the services that they needed. So it was really important for us, after making the film, we've been working with POV and we're creating a mobile-ready website for parents who can have at their fingertips direct access to services and support groups that are in their area.
So in addition to the services now that you're advocating for, the legal process, who's representing these families, whether it's the parents but also the children's interest as well? Who's that legal representative?
So it's typically public defenders that are representing the families. And the child also they'll have a CASA, and she's basically a court advocate for the child. So
is that like a social worker?
Yes.
Okay.
And in Seattle, because we were allowed access in the courts in Seattle, you get to kind of see all of the different players and what their role is. And the CASA plays a big part in just basically speaking up for the child during these court proceedings and making sure the child has a voice and making sure everybody understands, what the child wants in this situation.
Wow, I feel like there's a lot to be learned.
There definitely is.
There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of players, and it's very confusing.
The film will hopefully highlight a little bit of that for us to see how that process works a little bit.
Yeah, so tell us more about the film. But we're going to have a screening here, May 19th, and then it's going to actually air when?
The film will air on POV, PBS, on July 6th at 10 p.m., so definitely tune in.
Yes, love some PBS.
Yeah.
Love PBS.
And we'll also
Not more than here, but I love PBS.
I love BRIC too. And then we'll also be we have screenings all over the country. Actually, Stephanie couldn't be here right now because she's screening in Seattle, so we'll be definitely check us out.
Again, check out bricsartsmedia.org's website if you want to RSVP for the private screening.
Absolutely, and thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Carrie, for joining us today on BK Live.